We move on to our second one, which is The Mountain by Gorillaz. This was the winner of our poll on Instagram, so thanks to everyone for voting. And it was Xenia's pick. So I go to you first in and what you make of this ninth effort from the Cartoon Collective.
I thought I really like this album as well. I mean, it's truly like a really international record, which I think is quite brave. And you just looking at that collaboration list is pretty mind blowing. I mean, you've got like Indian royalty, Anushka Shankar, and then you've got Latin super producer Bizarrap, and the rising hip hop star Trueno, who comes from Argentina, and then you've got all these Indian classical musicians, alongside kind of rock band idols, and then Johnny Marr, and there's just there's a lot going on. Sometimes for me there was maybe a little bit too much going on some tracks, but otherwise, I mean, I think, generally speaking, highlights, like the Manifesto, such a tune. And I love Trueno as well. He's like 20, early 20s or something. I went to see him in London. He came over last year, and that concert was such good vibes. And I think I mentioned earlier just being really excited about Argentina, and it's just that, Bizarrap, the super producer, is also from Buenos Aires as well, along with Trueno. And there's a lot of kind of young up and coming artists from there. And so I was really happy to see them on this album. It's like, they're sort of drawing in all these kind of, not just from India, but from all around the world, and really tapping into what is up and coming, and what's where the movements are happening in all different parts of the world. So the Manifesto, probably a big highlight for me. The Bizarrap, Orange County. I'm a massive Bizarrap fan, and yet this was maybe not my favorite. This is not my favorite of his. Bizarrap basically does these just a bit of background. He does these he basically got big through doing the Bizarrap music sessions, where he invites in Latin up and coming, all kind of fairly established Latin stars. You come into his studio, they record a song, and he just puts his production charm on it. And so I mean, the most famous one is the one that he did with Shakira, where she was dissing her ex Piqué. But otherwise, outside of that, I mean, the album was kind of mostly produced by James Ford, who we work with at This Is Music. The Happy Dictator, I thought, was really well put together. I really loved that one. And then just kind of hearing all the Indian instrumentation, classical music, was just really interesting, with that kind of classic Gorillaz the Gorillaz sound and production weaved in. It's not an easy task, and to make the album, James Ford and Gorillaz, they went over, Damon, they went over to India and travelled around to all these different locations, just basically recording loads of classical musicians over there, and brass bands and things like that, which I remember James spoke to me about it. He said it was the most incredible experience to be able to go around to all these places. But I thought it was as I said before, sometimes certain songs may be a little bit too much going on, but I just, it was a really exciting, quite brave record to have just so much going on, and so international as well, which I really loved. Yeah.
There we go. It's thumbs up from Xenia. I mean, Karl, I know you had quite a few reservations when in our group chat on this one, so we'll go for a maybe unless things have changed, an alternative view on the Mountain.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'll start with the positives. I mean, like Zenya said there, you have to admire the like sheer ambition and concept of this project. I think, an album centered on life, grief, and resurrection as well is a big theme here. And I think, as you say, we're like these wonderful Indian influences in the music, and then choosing like features from people like Marky Smith, Tony Allen, Rapper Proof. We've got Dennis Hopper on there as well. All these voices and like musicians who are, sadly no longer with us. So I love the concept of them speaking, from the afterlife on this record. I think, like I say, you got to admire that. And there is the moments where it does connect. I mean, Orange County, I really love. The Empty Dream Machine, and then I'm with you, Xenia. Like the Manifesto is definitely the highlight for me. This near 8 minute epic. It feels like the record centerpiece. It's got that amazing, the verses. I won't pronounce his name because I'll butcher it, but from the person you mentioned, and then obviously the posthumous verse from Proof on there as well. So yeah, that's definitely the standout for me. And then Delirium, the track with Marky Smith, I think is great as well. You've got the Shadowy Light, and all of these tracks kind of come in the middle of the record. And yeah, I just really love those Indian sounds, and the Shadowy Light, that's one where like they're really at the fore on that track. And yeah, I would say those 4 or 5, that's like the third of the record that I enjoy and I would return to. However, there, as you say, Andrew, there's a couple of big issues I have with this record, and I'm sad to say the main one is Damon Albarn. I think for an album that's so vibrant and centered on life and rebirth, I just found his vocal performances like just quite lifeless at times on here, and just a bit dull. And I think for all the features and those other voices that join the ensemble, his is like still the dominant one. And for me personally, it's like the least interesting. Which is a shame because I go back to a record like, Demon Days and a track like El Mañana, and I remember how much his voice like would move me and really make me feel something. But here it just, yeah, I just found him a bit tedious in like the performances that he put forward. And I'd say the other issue that I have is that I think some of the features from certainly the rockier side are a bit wasted. I mean, the main one, Johnny Marr, when you've got him on a track, you think you'd give him like the spotlight to, you know, show what he can do with a guitar, but he appears on like several tracks here, but he's never really more than like background instrumentation. Like his guitar never really comes to the fore. And like the Idols track as well. I think that's another one that I thought, on paper, that's going to be incredible, but the end result I just thought was a bit underwhelming. So yeah, for me, the album at times was a bit like climbing up a mountain. Only there wasn't too many peaks, and the view from the top wasn't as rewarding as I'd hoped it would be. But yeah, and the other thing, it's an hour long, and for me, it felt like a slog for a good chunk of it. So I think it's one of those. I really admire the ambition. I think there is a great concept at the heart of this record, but I think the final execution and the quality of some of the tracks on here just didn't meet my lofty expectations for it. So yeah, it's slightly disappointing, I would say, for me.
Yeah, so in your off-stated, easy to admire, easy to admire, hard to love. That's
it,
your
yeah.
So there we go. I mean, I think you both covered the unbelievable ambition of this record. It's incredibly like the intricacies as well when you listen to it and stuff. Yeah, it's not at a high level, I would say, throughout, and there's dips and peaks and troughs for sure. But I think by the end, I grew to really admire it, and particularly through, you know, looking through the lyrics, looking through the process, how it was kind of Damon Albarn and Jamie Hewlett kind of processing the grief they'd gone through of close, loved ones, basically. And that's where you get these posthumous entries, you know, some of which had been in kind of the archives of Gorillaz recording for many a year, and then they've dug it up, and so I think like there's a fair bit of archaeology which has gone into this, and you know, really looking into what they have, using that, but then of course drawing upon a huge cast of collaborators. I think the Johnny Marr point is a fair one. I didn't get that sense of Johnny Marr being on any of these, for instance, but certainly other influences come across a lot stronger, like Anushka Shankar across many of these tracks. At the low end of the spectrum, The God of Lying with Idols, I was very disappointed with that. I'm a big fan of Idols, and yeah, just in both respects, both Damon and I do actually agree with a fair bit of what you say about his performance, Karl. That it doesn't feel as, but then I don't know if is he trying to mask his voice in some way? I don't know. I don't know. That's maybe reading too much into it. Obviously, based on the pain of what a lot of the subject matter here. But that one, yeah, both of them just, it doesn't come across too well, and whilst it's catchy, and that one is an earworm which stays in my head. It's not an earworm I want to stay in my head particularly. But on the highlights, Xenia mentioned The Happy Dictator. I mean, that one from the off, I really, really liked it. It kind of captures that zany appeal which Sparks have, and really, really well. And I loved the story behind that where Damon took his daughter to Turkmenistan, where they banned bad news. so like it was.
I love that. I never heard. I didn't know the backstory behind that song.
It's sometimes the most joyous thing is when you find out a story and you go, oh, actually, there's a really like cool story behind some of these. And that one, and I didn't know that was the case in Turkmenistan. It's basically a dictatorship for by all accounts, and but the interesting perspective he had, and he was interviewed somewhere about it, was kind of, actually it could be worse if you, in terms of like, if they are banning bad news, and obviously what we have on a daily basis, like, you know, on our screens and everything else, it was kind of that line between oppression and protecting the you know, and so that line about the palace of your mind.
No, yeah, I was just thinking that.
So that was, you know, and a lot of these have that, you know, both in the music, in the songs, but also where they were sort of created, and India is the main heartbeat from a geographical standpoint. There's a lot of those sort of stories throughout. So there's a lot to unpack, you know. There's 15 tracks, over an hour long, and I do agree also with Karl that the hour at times does seem a slog, but actually doing that really intense listen where I was taking the notes gave me a much deeper appreciation for a lot of it. And actually, I feel the best parts are right at the end. The last three tracks, I mean, Casablanca featuring Paul Simonon and Johnny Marr, apparently. You know, it's a really low key groove which just drives that one forward. But that one, you know, is sticking with the mountain analogy, which is also present throughout the album. And really bleak lyrics, but just a really lovely song, like that kind of juxtaposition. So that one was a standout for me. The Sweet Prince was about the final moments of Damon with his father on his deathbed, and the kind of conversation he had then, but was sort of framed with the Indian tradition of going on into your next life, essentially. So that's the construct he uses to frame that one. So I found that one very affecting, and that actually his voice does come through a bit better on that one for sure. And then The Sad God, I think, is a really good end note as well. You know, which is the perspective of a sad god, essentially looking at what we've done with our planet and going, I gave you atoms, you built a bomb. So it feels like if the standard of those last 3 tracks was throughout, I'd be giving it a higher one. But as it is, I think it's a great album. Well, yeah, a strong album, maybe not great. And yeah, you know, Delirium, Damascus, some really other good tracks along there, and I think something for everyone, but maybe how many of the songs is for you is a personal taste one, and not one which would go into the classic category, which certainly with the scale of ambition it could have. So The Mountain, drawing lots of different views, and views multifaceted as much as the album.